Okay, family. Last in the series covering South by Southwest was just some of the things I took notice of when I was, meandering through the streets of downtown Austin. And first of all, they had all these Chinese made, definitely have a Chinese ICTS inside of them. And I just hated these. There's no way I would get in one of these things, one of those self-driving cars. They were super, oof, just nasty. Um, and I'm just gonna say Minority Report is really what it felt like. Minority Report. Getting in one of these cars, and they had cameras everywhere, right? And they had all this like surveillance up in place, and um, blacked out SUVs, and just like man, I thought this was supposed to be a community event. I thought they were supposed to be here for the people, right? Why you need to come in your up armored SUVs, and oh my gosh, it was crazy. But that was one thing I noticed. That was another thing, was the blacked out vehicles. That so many handlers in the room, and so many people trying to control the narrative as a general rule. But then just walking out onto the streets, I came across some like they were posters on a pole, like, and there wasn't just one. It was just one after the other, after the other, after the other, just in your face, everywhere you went. And some of these signs said, like, there are too many dicks. Too many dicks. DICKS. And then below that, it had all these individual pictures of, like, I don't know, 50 or more, maybe 100 little individual pictures of men who all happened to be named Richard. And so, and Dick is like a nickname for Richard. So they're saying that there's too many dicks, meaning too many men, running these following corporations. And again, I just have to say that whether it's a corporation or a business of any kind, I'm going to just say that it should be run by whoever's the most qualified. It shouldn't be that you should get mad at because a company has decided to hire a CEO that is a man. I don't necessarily see that is the problem. It's they've made a business decision that he's the one who's the best to be running the company. Now, I'm not saying that he is a moral man of integrity, anything like that. Of course, if he's CEO for a corporation, well, you just got to look and see what the corporation's objective is. It doesn't matter if it's a woman or a man. You still have to abide by the charter of the corporation and the objectives of the corporation, and you, in theory, still have a board of directors to answer to, and so you have to enforce whatever policies and do whatever you need to do, right, to achieve their objectives. And so it doesn't matter whether you're a woman or a man. But anyhow, it's the other sign I saw was it said something. I really don't remember, actually, because there was so many of them. Everywhere I went, every time I turned, it seemed like every corner there was some kind of propaganda to shame, to blame, and to subjugate men in general, but especially white men. I didn't even need to see these billboards, right? I could just sense it because my friend that I was staying with, it was his house. He lived on the side, but then in the between the two properties, there was, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 guys, I think. And all but all but one of them was what I would call a beta male. Like, no bass in your voice, no confidence, no conviction, no no courage, no bravery. Like they just were like beaten into silence. Is kind of the impression I got. And I talked to my friends about this too and said, hey, is this, you know, if this is true and you're feeling like this, then you just know that this is a propaganda. This is communist propaganda to basically remove any would-be threat or obstacle in place of the communist takeover. So it's just part of their game plan to destroy the masculine and to put him in a state where he's like incapable of fighting back. And so, and that's been done over and over in history. So this is nothing new. It's the same playbook, right? It's just a different time and a different place, right? But it's all the same. So I did see a lot of that, and I saw a lot of this like equal opportunity stuff flying around saying, you know, that this person should get the job because of their skin color or their gender or their confusion about their gender. It was it was the same communist town, Austin, Texas, with all of its universities. It's the same as it was when I was there the last time, and that was like, I don't know how many years ago, 20, more than 25, 30 some years ago, I think. I think it was 33 years ago, yeah, that I was in Austin the last time, and it's just full on in your face, and but I did stop and whenever I did see these posters, or whenever I did have the opportunity to say something in front of a man, I would always lift him up and encourage him and remind him that the women and the children and those who are most vulnerable in society are grateful for the sacred masculine, and there's no such thing as a toxic masculine, because if he's so toxic, well, who raised him, ladies? Like, whose womb, whose waters was this toxic man coming from, right? Who influenced him for the first 7 years of his life, right? So, you know, there's no such thing as a toxic masculine, but there is the masculine that is out of sorts, if you will, you know, because you know, he's doing the best he can with what he has, but every time he tries to turn around and take a masculine role, he's being shut down. Too many dicks in the corporation, too many white men doing this, too many men. That's all I saw every time I walked all over the streets in Austin, was just something trying to put the man down. And I talked to a couple of guys in the taxi cab. I had one guy he was a taxi driver from Cuba, I think he was, and we talked at length. And another taxi driver was from Austin, but he was I think he'd lived there his whole life, and so he wasn't like coming from a Cuba. They know what it feels like. So you want to find out what communism looks like, talk to somebody that came out of one of those countries, all right? And here we go again. You know, it's like this the strong men create good times, the good times create weak men, and the weak men create hard times, and the hard times create the strong men again. So that's where we're at, and I'm just trying to lift up the men. I saw one guy, I said, I pointed to the poster, and I said, I just want you to know, you know, this is propaganda. It's total bullshit, and I personally don't buy it. And you know, I just want to leave that fairy dust, if you will, in that space. The wind and the rain and all these weird storms were coming around like the whole time I was there. Then the helicopters were flying over, and it was just a mess, you know, like I don't know what else to say, but you know, it's nothing that happened overnight, that's for sure. This has been going on for decades. But Austin was a very, appropriate place to hold such a communist event as the South by Southwest. Um, I can hardly think of a better place to hold that. I mean, there would have been a couple of places in California that would have been well received, but I believe they're all turned into total shitholes now, with homeless people on the streets and stuff like that. Where Austin still puts up this appearance of equity, of people, of a livable city, right? And it's nah, I don't see it that way at all. I see a bunch of Chinese investors moving in there and swooping up all the land and putting in their data centers and their ICTS and all their electric vehicles and everything else that the Chinese are infamous for doing, which is basically destroying the environment. So it's, and I'm not picking on China per se. It's just I'm making an observation, and no one is left out of this. It's not only the Chinese that do this, of course, but as a general rule, you can look at the state of the countries after the, let's say in this case China came through there. Lockdowns, surveillance, cameras in Australia there was cameras like literally on the motorway. And I forget how often these cameras were, but my friend, he was driving and he said, oh yeah, they've been having those here forever. And every time you go past the camera, it's $10 or $20 or however much it is. Just really raping the people. And just, you see, whereas, all the cars that are on the streets and stuff, they're mostly made in China. So you can clearly see China wants to be the next global economic and military superpower. It wants its time on the stage to say, hey, I'm the big guy on campus or whatever. That's just so ridiculous. But that's how the so-called communist leadership of China feels. And I really kind of doubt the people feel that way. I think the people just want to live in peace and prosperity, and they want a clean environment. And I think they would be on board with some of these ideas about industries of the future, but I've been saying that for 15 years now. So basically, renewable, non-toxic, non-invasive industries that will clean the environment at the same time create millions of jobs. And we don't need to go down the path of the Orwellian nightmare, the programs that these people with lots of money, because obviously if they got a lot of money, they're worshiping at the altar of the money. They're seeing what they can buy up with it and stuff, right? Instead of trying to do something good with it. But they're all about a top-down perspective, like top down, that's communist control from the top, and then everybody else below it, as opposed to the real where the pyramid is really built. It's from the ground up, the grassroots up, and that's where the best ideas are going to come from. That's where the best innovation is going to come from. That's where all the markets are going to open up for your economic issues and your trade issues and this and that and the other. It's that's just the way it is. So I don't know if I'll ever go back to Austin. Perhaps I may. First I gotta find my way back to the States somehow. My last time I tried to use my new passport, I was told that one was on a list as well. So when I can't get back to the States, whenever that will be, I will continue. But I'm sure by then it'll already have taken off. It will already have taken off. So I'm down here in Central America now, and I'm gonna be coordinating with some folks here, attending trade shows or visiting sites and looking at proof of concept tests and talking with the people just to say, hey, look, let's do this. Let's clean the environment. Let's create a strong manufacturing-based economy. Um, let's stop focusing on the artificial intelligence and start to, because that's inferior, and it's always going to be inferior to human intelligence. So let's start focusing on the ones bringing the message of holistic intelligence and unconditional love for the sacred water, for the Mother Earth, for the life they support, and for the 7 future generations. Yeah. And in this way, if we are in this alignment, then we don't have to force our way so much through stuff, and we don't have to put up our towers and implement our ICTS and put in the cameras and this and that and the other and try to control everything. Bruh, stop. Scarcity is a mental illness. So let it go, and and see what we can do when we change our perspective from scarcity to abundance, because nature does have all the solutions. So I'll leave that with you, family. That's my wrap up on the South by Southwest event, international event that was held in Austin, Texas, for the purpose of the so-called experts gathering to discuss the problems and the obstacles that we face, and for the purpose of providing solutions to that. It was a complete joke. South by Southwest is a complete joke. And if you fall for that kind of stuff, I don't know what to say, but other than the communist propaganda is working on you, and to try to have some discernment when you attend these. Also, to remember, anytime you gather in places like this, whether it's a football stadium or some event downtown or a concert or whatever, is that that's a moment where the energy can be harvested. So everybody that was passing through there with their good intentions, they wasn't even being aware of, they were being fed off of. So definitely be careful of the crowds, like this, that are being, clearly the narrative is being dictated. You can see that by the petrochemical industry, by China, by the AI, big tech. I every subject that there was for them to be talking about, they always brought that in there, like it's some kind of a solution. So just be careful about when you go well, actually, next year, or this year rather, the plan was to stop doing this forum altogether and just turn it into I forget what they said, was something about just the movie industry. So that right there was like, whoa, it's gonna be like another Hollyweird, um, like another, you know, outpost but instead of the CIA running it, it's gonna be the Chinese intelligence running the programs and dictating the narrative and these kinds of things. So just be careful of that. It's going to take a while to clean this up, and in the meanwhile, just have some discernment when you go to these things, and don't let nobody sit there and talk to you in some briefing telling you they're the expert, and that because they have this government job you should listen to the way they tell you the state of things and what the solutions are and stuff like that. Like, no, man, the solutions are going to come from us, from the individual small people on the ground, boots on the ground. It's not going to come from the outside. It's not going to come from the top down. We ain't doing like that no more. We're not. So that's it, family. Until we meet again. Actually, look at that, was just my South by Southwest. I still have all this list, and this is 2, 3, 4 years old. So I will see if I can get through these lists soon. Anyhow, family, have a beautiful day. Ciao for now.